Yo, Eric Dubois with edpbeats.net. It's been a while, I haven't done a new episode of What's in Stock, going through Ableton's stock plugins. So I'm going to do a new one today. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably know I asked in my stories what stock plugin you wanted me to do, either reverb or beat repeat, and reverb is the winner. So we're going to start off, we're going to go through what the reverb does in Ableton, which is one of my favorite plugins. I don't think you need any other reverb. And by the way, amazing mixing engineer Alex Tumay told Kenny Beats when he asked him, what reverb do you use? Alex said something like, I use any reverb. All reverbs are good. Just learn how to use it, learn how to mix it, and learn how to control it, and that's the best that you can do. So let's try and wrap this up pretty quick. There's the new Cave episode that's coming out, so I want to watch that and catch that. If you guys are not watching that, it's incredible. So let's do it. What's in stock? Reverb. Alright, so before we get started, I got this old iMac that I'm trying to work on and it's not working properly for me, so I'm back on the MacBook Pro. Never let me down, and so that's why the setup is kind of a mess, so I'm sorry for that, but fuck it. So let's pull out the reverb. And here it is. So this is how the reverb looks inside of Ableton Live. So we have several parameters that we can play from, and it's really easy to use. It looks a little bit complicated maybe at first, but it's super easy. So the basic tools that you use in the reverb first would be the dry wet knob. This is gonna allow you to mix in the affected signal with the dry signal. So if you don't want any reverb, you set that to 0. And if you want only reverb, you set that to 100. And then you have only the reverb signal. You have the decay time. The decay time, it controls the tail of the reverb. How long do you want the reverb to last? So a longer decay time, you have this crazy reverb that just keeps going forever, right? Which is really cool. And a shorter decay time, you can barely hear the reverb in the back. So it's very short. So what does a reverb do? A reverb kind of simulates what it gives a little bit more life to an instrument or to a sound. So it makes it feel as if it's inside a room. So it could be a small room, a big room, a concert hall, a bathroom, a bathtub, and it kind of emulates all those kind of different rooms to give the sound a little bit more life. So the size allows you to kind of choose what size you want the room to be. So a big room is like a big concert hall. So we have this kind of, let's put the dry wet all the way up so you can only hear the affected signal. Here, crank the volume here. It's a big room, small room, much more metallic sounding. And then we have the pre-delay, which actually tells the reverb to start a little bit later so that the original sound can kind of cut through. So the longer your pre-delay is, the later the reverb is going to appear in your sound. So you can have some cool things. So if we put it all the way up, and let's turn the dry wet knob back to 50. So you can kind of hear that delay. And the reverb coming in much later. So that's pretty cool. Those are your basic functions inside of the reverb, which pretty much every reverb has. So this is gonna allow you already to tweak the sound and to get the reverb that you want. Now let's dive in a little bit deeper into these different sections here. So right here we have the reflection section, which is gonna control, so let's put the reverb all the way up. The reflection section takes care of your first phase of the reverb. So it's the very early stage of the reverb. The first sound that you're gonna hear coming from the reverb is the early reflection. So if I turn off the diffuse and we put the reflection all the way up, let's hear how this sounds. And then we can kind of tweak the filter here. We can add some spin, which is kind of like a chorus effect to your reverb. You can get some crazy sounds with it. So let's try it. You can turn it off. You can add a low cut too, just to keep the high ends. So once again, we're only listening to the reverb. We're only listening to the wet signal of the reverb, the fully affected. So this is what controls the reflections in the early part, in the early stage of the reverb. Now, this knob, if we turn the reflections all the way down, and now we're going to talk about the diffuse network. So the late the later part of the reverb, the tail of the reverb, if you prefer. So let's turn that all the way up. And let's hear how this sounds just off the bat. So since we have a longer decay time, you can see that the reverb is lasting a bit longer. So let's turn that a bit down and let's play around with it. So same thing here, you have a chorus effect that you can play around with to give you some crazy so you can get pretty intense with this section. Let's turn off the chorus. Let's play around with the filter right here. So if we turn on the low pass filter, let's just tweak some of the parameters and keep only the highs. So these are pretty cool functions in your reverb that allows you to get a really cool, unique sound in your reverb. Now, another cool function in the reverb is here the quality, which allows you to select what type of quality you want your reverb to be. So you have eco, mid, and high. Of course, if you go for high, it's the best quality. The reverb sounds just amazing. Sounds clean, sounds pure, but it's gonna use a lot more of your CPU. So if you're using a bunch of channels with a lot of different reverbs and they're all on high, you're wasting CPU for not that much of a good deal. So yeah, the quality, I like to set it on high if I'm doing some sample packs or if I'm working on one specific sound that I want it to sound great. Otherwise, just keep it on eco. It's fine with me. So this freeze button here, if we click it, it's gonna freeze the reverb signal in that instant that you turned it on. So it's just gonna keep looping that one phrase, that one moment that you've frozen, which can give you a really cool atmospheric sound in the background if you want to use it alone. So let's check this. Let's put in 50. Let's hit the freeze button. All right, let's do it one more time. So now we have this very ambient reverb going on in the back all the way through. So that's gonna stay on no matter what else, no matter what other notes you're gonna be touching. So it's a really cool thing to have. Now, what I use reverb for, I'm gonna show you a few tricks and a few tips that I use reverb a lot on anything. So since we're talking about the freeze button, this is what I do. So first off, we're gonna hit that one key. I'm gonna turn the decay time a little bit higher. Hit that freeze button. We're hearing the reverb in the back. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new audio track and I'm gonna resample that reverb that we're hearing in the back and use that as its own instrument or as its own lead melody line, right? So hit the create a new audio track, resampling. I showed this a lot of times before. Hit record. And let's just record a small section. All right, perfect. Now we can go back to our operator. We can turn off that freeze. And now we have our frozen reverb right here. So I might need to crank up the volume just a little bit. And this is your affected, turn off the metronome. So this is our affected signal right here, and we can play around with it. You can go in a little bit deeper, and then you can chop it up. You can add different effects to it. So for example, this one, we're gonna pitch it up maybe two semitones. And then you can play around with that and do a bunch of cool stuff with it. You can add more effects to that layer, and it just creates this unique sound that you've just created. So that's one trick that I like to do with a reverb, is to resample the frozen verb in order to add an atmosphere and to add just a cool vibe to the general track that matches the lead instrument of the track. Another cool thing I like to do with reverbs is usually on drums. So I pulled up this drum rack right here. It has just a quick kick and a snare on it, just real quick, real basic. Let me turn it on. Super easy. Now what I like to do is to go on my snare channel and I'm going to add a reverb to the snare. So let's find our reverb, drag it onto our snare. Here it is. Now instead of using it as is, and I've mentioned it before 100 times too, is I like to put it in a group so that I can control only the affected signal. So we're gonna group the reverb. I'm gonna create a new chain, and this first signal is gonna be only the reverb signal. So we're gonna put the dry wet all the way 100%, and the second chain is actually our dry signal, so it's not being affected by the reverb at all. So if I play the snare, let's see this. Now I'm gonna turn the decay time a little bit higher. So now we have this big reverb that I can control the volume right here. I can make it less intense, just in the background. And then I basically just play around with that. So I can add an auto pan to have it kind of like move in space. I can add a sidechain compressor to it so that it bounces with the kick, which is really cool. And you can do just so many things with this reverb tail that just sounds great. So for example, if I add an auto pan, I'm gonna drag this onto our reverb. I'm gonna raise the mount all the way up, drop the phase, so it's just a volume automation, and have it like kind of pulsate, right? So let's turn the shape up, and it's here. So that gives you that crazy reverb effect that goes on. You can do the same thing if we raise the phase all the way up. Then you have it left to right, and it just... So you can have a lot of fun with reverbs, and Ableton Reverb is a great tool to have. Now, Reverb has a bunch of presets in Ableton that you can use. So you have wooden room, wooden hall, warm reverb, storage space, spring reverb, snare room, small chamber, a bunch of things that you can try out and see how it goes. So for example, let's try singing in a can. So singing in a can, let's turn the dry wet knob a little bit less to 50. Much more springy reverb. Let's see what else we have. If we have forest floor, turn the dry wet knob to 50. You have oil barrel. So you can get some really cool and you can get really creative with reverb, and it really adds a lot of texture and a lot of life to any type of electronic sound that you have. So that was my take on the reverb. I hope you guys liked it. Follow me on Instagram, hit a like, hit a subscribe, all those things that I need to say. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week for another video. Peace.